The Bolt, Yamaha's answer to Harley Davidson. Pretty great cruiser, but what if we were to turn it into a cafe racer? Yamaha came out with the Bolt to compete with all the other cruisers out there, namely Harley Davidson. It is a pretty good knockoff, but Yamaha got a little greedy and they saw another sector out there and they wanted a part of it, that of the modern classic, something that Triumph is pretty good at, and some other manufacturers as well. But rather than take a sports bike platform and put a vintage fairing on it, kind of like Kawasaki did, they took a cruiser frame, namely the Bolt. And the results, I have to say, while kind of striking in theory, in practice, doesn't really work. I talked to one of my friends who owned the C-Spec after I did, and we talk about the shortcomings of this particular version of the Bolt, which was not very successful. The Bolt is a great platform, but was it good enough for a retro style cafe racer?
As a cafe type bike, didn't really suit it because it was a cruiser that they tried to make into a cafe. They just pretty much put the lowered handlebars,
the clip-ons, yeah. So there was much lower. And here's the other issue: the pegs. They went from forward control to mid control.
Yes.
But where they positioned them,
yes,
very awkward, very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Every time you stop, it poked you on the sides.
Right.
The other one is that its weight was just very heavy.
It was way too heavy.
It was something like 500 pounds.
Yeah. With the cafes, they're very minimalistic.
Yeah.
This was not minimalistic. This was a beast of a bike. I mean, don't get me wrong. That was a great bike. It had some power.
Well, the V-twin engine, the 950cc, put out a lot of power, a lot of torque. I thought it sounded great, especially with that aftermarket pipe we put on.
Right.
But,
well, you put it on, and then I got to use it.
Right. But if I'm not saying you shouldn't get it. If you see it,
it's a great bike.
Probably
point A
cheap.
to point B. Yeah.
The thing that gets me is that Yamaha, who made this bike, they wanted a cafe racer in their stable, but I think they chose the wrong platform for it. They took this Bolt kind of Harley knockoff and tried to make it something that it wasn't. And what they should have used was any one of their sports bikes. Right. Just put a different fairing on it, and it would have worked.
They did the Scrambler.
And that's the other thing.
They tried to make it everything it possibly could.
And a heavy cruiser is just throw on some different tires on it. It does not make a good scrambler.
No.
So if you end up catching one of these for a good price, not saying don't get it, but definitely go for a long ride before you do.
Yeah.
There are three main gripes I have with this bike. One are the pegs. Very awkward position. Every time you stop, you kind of run into them. 2 is the weight. It's fairly heavy for what it is. And 3 are the clip-ons that they decided to put on. Make the seating position very kind of forward-leaning, but with the pegs where they are, not very comfortable. So for long-term riding, not the most appropriate motorcycle. There was one plus for this bike for me, and that was the engine. 950cc V-twin, great amount of power. Works, I assume, great as a bobber or the cruiser that it normally comes in. And once you get rid of that side cannon that Yamaha fitted it with for something more like a Vance and Hines pipe or something similar, lighter and rowdier, it sounds great. It sounds amazing. But that's about it. It's, again, very heavy. For me, the pegs were atrocious, and the seating position was a little too uncomfortable.